Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name's Clint Button and I'm a granite sculptor. Decided to start on a new endeavor. This work is dying out. The term lost art gets thrown around a lot in a lot of different venues. And the reality is that in terms of professional, industry level, bulletproof results, trained granite sculptors left in the United States, there's a small colony in Vermont with a dozen or so people carving, and the majority of them are 60 years or older. There's a few young people that are still carving, and there's me. There's one or two artists around the country that have done work for the industry regularly, but they're pretty much at the hobby level at this point. They don't produce work on a full-time basis anymore, and there simply isn't anyone left. So, you know, we're talking, even if you want to be, you know, generous and say there's 24 professional sculptors in the industry, that's 24 people for 300 and something million isn't a lot. And we were brought up and trained that it typically would take 10 years to take somebody from beginning, teaching them how to hold a chisel and cut stone, to being a break-even employee, not a profitable employee, just break-even. It takes 10 years of full-time work for someone to become an accurate, competent carver. To be a fluent sculptor and create and finish work is typically takes even longer. So now there are people that have the ability. There's people that have a gift. My sculptor flattered me greatly one day when he said, "You've got the gift, you can actually do it." He says, "A lot of people have been through my studio over the years and they wanted to do it really badly, but they just didn't have the ability to go beyond a certain point." Much like a musician, you know, may be able to play all the chords, but they can't make it magical and bring the music to life any more than carvers can bring stone to life. So I'm getting older. I've been doing this for well over 20 years, and I've only got about a decade left before I'm theoretically retiring age in my mid-60s. I'll be 56 this year. So I'm going to start what I'm going to call a virtual apprenticeship. This will be based upon my work in the granite industry. There may be some, you know, other projects that come in. The vast majority of my work is granite. The methods are fairly comparable to other media, and even if you want to compare hand-driven work to power-driven work, there's still a basic skill set that you need to develop. Before I moved into stone, I went through a couple other apprenticeships, but most significantly, I went through a culinary apprenticeship. I worked for several years before I was given a thermometer and said, "Here, you're a chef," when I could actually be trusted to test temperatures and make final calls on important food going out. And after that, I spent journeyman time, several years of traveling, working in specific restaurants and specific things, you know, whether it was fish cutting, whether it was doing deli pizza type work, whether it was throwing dough, you know, doing bagels and all kinds of stuff, in order to learn how to do it at a production rate. It's one thing to produce sculpture work whenever you feel like it, and you work on it a little bit now and you work on it a little bit later, and it gets done when it gets done. My intent with this apprenticeship is to teach people how to be determinate. You're the sculptor, you are the carver, you have the opposable thumbs, you hold the chisels and you swing the hammer. The stone doesn't. The stone isn't going to talk to you and tell you what it wants to be. The stone isn't going to change shapes overnight and become something better because you have this romantic idea that it will. And I hear a lot of that with people that want to do art, and they want to carve stone, and they put in a lot of romance that really doesn't need to be there. If you want to do it, do whatever you want. But I've had stone in my hands and under my chisel for decades, and it's never spoken to me. It doesn't say how you doing. It never asks how my day is, or says I want to be an angel instead of a turtle. It doesn't. So that's just fluff. But because of my culinary background, I had trained people and done some apprenticeship work where I had people under me training. I entered the stone apprenticeship, well, both as a very fluent carver. I was already at the edge of being a professional carver because of the experience I'd had with ice, and also some woodwork that I'd done. I understood the time component much differently. And the thing I like about formal apprenticeship when you're hired is that if you screw up, you're fired. If you go to school and take a class, you're paying to learn. And to me, that's the wrong direction for the money to be flowing. I want to be paid to learn. And by entering an apprenticeship where I had some competency, I was able to work and get paid while I improved and grew as a sculptor, so that in a relatively short period of time, within just 3 years, I had my own studio. That's not normal. It's obviously possible. I've grown tremendously since I opened my studio. I like the work I do now a lot better than the work I did then. But it is possible to move forward quickly. I'm going to present what I understand to be important information and guidance. I'm not in a position, the industry has changed. I'm one of the very last people probably that will ever have a formal paid apprenticeship in the industry as a carver, just because things have changed, with import work and public taste and demographics on who buys what. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to do a virtual. This is the new reality. In the past, teaching an apprenticeship, teaching in terms of apprenticeship, was left for masters. Now, I'm not a master. I used to call my masters a master, and they'd tell me I was a fool. They say, you don't know what you're talking about. And they'd get all, I didn't understand at that point. To me, they were brilliant. They could do anything. The more I've worked, the more I understand, because their point was that the more you do, the better you get, and the better you get, the less you know, and so you're even further away from becoming or being a master. So I'm always suspicious. Anybody that says, hi, I'm a master sculptor, master whatever, master carver, I'm done with them. I don't have any interest in listening to them. That's patting themselves on the back. The stone should say they're the master. If you want to look at someone and say, hey, that's a master, that's up to you. But for that individual to present themselves as a master, that's the wrong person to follow. I regularly say choose your masters well. You can listen to people that shouldn't be listened to, and they'll get in your head. And when you're at a critical point doing final details and they cloud your judgment or your mind and you make a mistake, you can't afford that, or at least I can't. So my head's only big enough to fit so many people in there. I'm going to try to keep this somewhat focused, but I'll ramble and talk because there's so much to discuss. Choose your masters well. I wanted to start this off. We talked about this recently, my wife, and she said, don't go in there and be rude and be inconsiderate. And she actually used words other than that, but those are more polite for this politically correct world. You look at the other videos online and they've got a beautiful, pure, clean background, and they've got romantic music playing, and they've got very I don't know, very hip stuff. They've got better camera work, they got better microphone work, and that's not me, okay? This is me. It's about 45 degrees in my open studio. My studio has open doors on one side. The whole wall is open, facing west, and built like that on purpose so that I could control all my light. But you can't heat, I can't afford to heat and cool a building with, 16, 20 foot to the rafters. That's just not that's just not what I can do. So it's cold, it's rainy, it's middle of January. It's been raining a lot, so the floor is kind of muddy. This is reality. This is what I get for, this is 20 years that I've had my own studio. We established a studio 20 years ago this year. And so teaching and apprenticing and training is typically reserved for people who have reached a level of expertise that they no longer have the physical ability to do the things they once did. I can't pound stone like I used to. I can still work pretty good, but it hurts. And so this is, from the old days, this is the pension plan. This is what you do in order to have somebody come in and you train people, and they would boost your income because you were able to train them, and then you were able to salvage their work and make it good. But a lot of people now want to take 2 or 3 classes, watch a couple videos, post it online, and sell romance. They want to go viral and then get paid off of views and clicks and whatever. I'd like to get paid off of views and clicks someday. I have my doubts this will ever be a big money maker venture for me to do this apprenticeship. I don't think most people will be diligent enough to watch this. My hopes are that if I start now, that in 10 years, by the time I'm 66, I'm hoping that maybe somebody will actually get good at this because they learned from me. I also have an obligation to protect this knowledge. This knowledge, I don't own it. It was shared with me by men that trusted me because they believed in me. They saw what I could do. And some of them even came back to me years later and said, I really thought you could do it, and you were worth the risk. We wanted to make this happen with you. And that's really humbling to me because they were not moving on. They were still rooting for me in the background. Like my sculptor telling me I had the gift. He didn't tell me that till I'd had my studio for over a decade. And he said, I really figured you'd make it. But my old masters are dying. Their health's failing as they, move into their 70s and 80s. And if this information isn't captured and recorded for everybody long term, we used to be afraid that the Chinese were going to steal what we know, and the Indians were trying to hire us to go to India to train their people, and nobody would do it. At this point, it's so hard to get anybody to actually work that we've got to try to preserve this knowledge one way or the other. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to start working on this video series. I'll keep it as a separate playlist from my other videos, and may refer to other videos. We're going to try to do dedicated videos for this apprenticeship series. And people can come to studio and hands-on learn. Come pay for time, just like it cost me to cut, cost you to cut. And you'll learn a lot more. My goal is that if anybody does come, they'll already have some background, so I don't have to waste time teaching people about how to sharpen tools, how to hold your tools, how to figure out your composition before you start, how to flatten or square up a panel in order to develop the ground, in the back of a niche if you're doing a bas relief. There's a lot of those things that they never teach you in art classes because people want to go and everybody shows up and they want to say, I want to carve an angel with arms in the air and wings up in the air. Dude, I can't carve that just on a whim. That's really serious work. And you tell people you need to be able to carve a flat panel with make a square block out of a rough piece of stone and make it into a cube accurately. Well, they don't want to do that. Okay, well, I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to show you the basics. We're going to go through sharpening tools. I'm going to try to, I think I figured out how to do a demonstration large enough that you can see, so we're not in, you know, microscopic telephoto mode, whatever, trying to figure out tools. You can learn to sharpen tools. You don't have to have tools to sharpen stuff. You can learn to sharpen things and then transfer that knowledge to your tools. So talk about setting up your studio and the kind of equipment that you really need. I'm a firm believer in equipping my studio because I'm a little isolated on purpose because I don't want foot traffic, people in here all the time to stand around and visit, talk, and then I can't cut stone and make money and pay my bills, and it's a drag. When, you know, I was on the clock with the union apprenticing, that was different. But that's not where I'm at now, and I'd rather have some autonomy. So I have to be able to make a lot of my own, service a lot of my own needs right here, making some tools and having some support. I know everybody's not going to have all this equipment, but I'm going to show you some basic things that you can get and can have, and by spending, say, $100 to buy a machine that you can then make $500 or $1,000 of tools with, to me, it makes a lot of sense in terms of being in business and doing this, because I don't have a job. This is my job. This is my career. This is what I've done. And sometimes things are slow. Right now we're waiting for stone to arrive. We've had slowdowns from the pandemic, and the industry really got overwhelmed, and so I'm catching up on a lot of odd work while we wait for stone to arrive for jobs that are sold a couple years ago. And that's reality. I didn't want to come in here and say everything's great and my Ferrari's parked out front and, you know, my wife's by the pool. That's not how we live. We live in a very real world, and have a great studio, and I love what I do, but I don't want to mislead you. So I'd like to help some people become better carvers, and hopefully help some people actually become sculptors before I die. So if that makes sense, stick around. I don't have a specific schedule for this. It's not like I'm on the clock and I've got deadlines to meet in order of posting these videos. I'm going to try to post them regular and keep going on stuff and make them rational enough that you can understand. I will emphasize, I cannot tell you enough that if I tell you you need to do this and I show you what to do, you need to do it. I'm going to just do these videos, number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and just go right down the line. I don't know if there's going to be 100 videos or 1,000 videos or 50 videos. There's going to be a lot of them in order to do this. But if you click on the link, you know, go to the playlist, whatever, and say, I want to carve a pretty face, and you skip to number video 33 or whatever video it is, I don't know. If you go immediately to that video and you skip almost everything before it, you won't be prepared to do the good work. And what will happen is you'll get yourself into problems that you can't fix. And that's what the basics are about. Right now there's a move with digitizing everything, with you know, putting it in the computer and scanning it, whatever, and then having a computer translate that into a program so that a CNC could take a piece of stone that's mounted on a lathe and carve it. And they carve 99% of it, taking the place of an apprentice. Okay? Y'all, people that are learning. People like me that had to learn. Took years to learn that stuff. So then you can go in and scrape a little bit off and with a die grinder or whatever you do and not actually carve it and say, see, I carved a great statue. No, you didn't. You finished a statue. You didn't carve it. The problem that I have with that process is that people are going to lose the skill set of how to reach that point, because now there are still people like me that an artist a sculptor that only works in clay, in plastic media, or in digital, and says, I want this. I want that in stone. And they very quietly hire me to carve it in stone. And then they take it and they do a little bit of work and they put their name on it and say, see, I did a big statue out of marble or whatever. No, they didn't. They hired a carver, they employed somebody else to do a lot of the work. Now, I understand that's tradition with, everybody from, back to Michelangelo and before and all that. Lots of people did that. But it's important that this skill set isn't lost, because at least in America, there's not many people that are putting the effort in to do it the hard way and do it the long way, so that they understand, so that then when they do it, it looks easy, because they know how to do all the little stuff. They can finish a panel and know how to go through and tune it up at the end. They can do all the work around a niche or a plinth, or they can put a check and cove around the base of something and it looks straight. The background isn't all crooked and wonky and that. So resist the urge to skip around. I'll try to make these as to the point as possible. I don't do time lapse. I think it's foolish. This isn't a cartoon. And there's a lot of things that it's hard to condense. I can only show you so much. You have to do it. I can show you the basics, and then you have to do it. A nose is shaped like a nose. Okay, there's a million books out there on how to draw things in circles and with lines of division and all that. I'm not going to try to reinvent that. I'm going to try to show you how to get to work and cut stone. So there's people that ask about shell rock pitch. Before I die, that'll probably be included in that. But that's a highly advanced technical skill that you really have to learn everything else before you're prepared to do it, or else you'll just destroy stones. So hang in there, and we'll see how this goes, and hopefully I can put enough information out there that it does help people, that it does provide benefit for all of us, and that it helps a truly American craft. The modern methods of stone carving in terms of granite with hand machines and everything is American. It isn't. They didn't originate anywhere else. This is where it exploded and became the norm. So, and I don't want to see it die after just 100, 130 years. So anyways, my name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor here at Carolina Sculpture Studio for video number 1 for the Virtual Apprenticeship. Thanks for coming in.